is your story not hitting the right notes? Then this is a perfect video for you. Today we're going to be going over prose and how you can improve that in your story. And I say can because writing advice is very subjective. So let us begin. All right, so straight into it. Let's just say one is going to be purple prose is not the answer. It is for those scenes that you have to fit them in, and purple prose that really does fit into the aesthetic of that scene or character that you are creating. But you don't need to throw purple prose around the entire book because then you're gonna look quite stupid. I recommend doing what I recommend in multiple times. I think I've already said this in multiple videos, is making sure that your job with your prose is to make sure that every sentence hits the best mark it can. And that is not with extra wording. That is making sure that it conveys what your character is feeling, but also conveying what the story is to tell. And it is hard to do both and not one or the other. Because on one hand, if it's chaotic battlefield, which I've already talked about this before, if it's a chaotic battlefield, then, and your character's calm, you can write chaotically. But if you write in the character's perspective, then it's going to be extremely calm. And obviously, a calm-minded character is still going to have some hesitation. We are human after all. And basically, what I've already sent examples in many videos before for this exact demonstration is that you can have the person, let's say it's a POV character, and I'm talking about prose in third-person limited and first-person perspectives and all that, is that you see one character, and then they look over, and then they see the new guy carrying a little axe, and he's quivering. He's quivering in his boots, man, like shiver me timbers. He is scared out of his mind, and you get to see that the shaking thing really shows how chaotic this battlefield is, not from his perspective, but from the calm-minded character's perspective that is worried not about themselves, but about their comrades. Because they're calm-minded, but they're not heartless. I mean, that's how you can add depth to your character, is make sure that, you know, they're not just a one-way street. You could have a calm-minded character, but then that makes them heartless. And you realize that one trait can mean so many others, but it also can't mean so many others. And you have to define that in your prose, and that's difficult. Making sure that calm-minded character that you have also is worrying. You have to foreshadow that in a sense of your prose later on, of creating a scene like what I've seen in multiple movies and books alike. Because I feel like movies and books have one thing in common, and it is how to introduce a character good. So I think I watched F1. It's a great movie. But I watched F1 recently, and how they introduced Brad Pitt's character was a good look on in his habits to who he is as a person, and that's what you want to do in many other things. So I think it was The Devils by Mr. Joe. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Phenomenal author. He's definitely an inspiration for me. But how he introduced, I think it was The Devils, the priest, right? Introducing the priest and on how he saw the world and his past problems, and being able to fit that kind of just in one paragraph without it feeling like exposition. And that's what we're going on to next, is exposition in prose. So basically, exposition in prose is a sense of making sure that, not having any of it. You can have exposition, but not too much, not too little. You should be able to do that without. Exposition is fine if it's in the character's traits, if it's in their cards. If someone talks about that, then don't talk about their dialogue. You just make a sentence, and it's like world building detail, but that they both knew. Instead, incorporate it as maybe they have a nickname. So maybe it's like let's say it's called the Smoky Tower. I don't know. they just call it Mr. Smokey or Mrs. Smokey. That's a thing, and it brings a lived-in world and aspect and shows how closely combined those characters are in a setting, and it shows friendship, and it shows many other things. And that's what I mean, is you can do so much more by adding just a little bit more lived-in world without adding all these likes that we have in our real world. We do stuff that is relatable, but also new. And I think that's like awkward relatability. I thought that's what Mr. Sanderson talked about. But yeah, I mean, you just have to make sure that exposition is not given, it's taken from the reader. Because you don't want to give exposition out in a sense. You want it to flow like it's been taken. And I know that might not make sense for some, but what I mean is I've already went over this. Is just, character dialogue and character thought, especially in third-person limited and first-person settings for fantasy and all these other genres, is making sure that every single thing in your prose is how your character is. And yeah, we're going to go on to number 3 here, which can improve your prose, and it's reaching a sense of urgency. Bestsellers are able to make the reader their prey, and themselves being a predator, of reaching out and getting the reader on their heels at the right times and getting them on their toes on the right times. And that is one of the hardest things to do in writing, and that's what makes bestsellers so dang good at their job and at their career path. And yeah, that's phenomenal work. But it's being able to make sure, with all that, being able to make your reader that with character thought, development, and all these other things blended into your prose and in your sentence structure, all that. It's one of the hardest things to do in writing, and it's what I struggle with mostly, with making sure that every single sentence aligns with the character perfectly, but also to the fact that it makes the reader want to read the next sentence. It does its job perfectly, which we already talked about. And prose is one of those things that you can get really too cocky with it. You can search up a lot of words. I know a lot of people do that. Not my forte, but you can just get all these really complex words and put them into that, which is fine if it's the character. But for example, in my story, I have a character that doesn't know as much vocab, and he actually makes fun of people who have vocabulary to add to, because if he didn't have that trait, it would make him a very bland character, because other than that, he's kind of just a vengeful little guy, okay? So basically, just adding all those things, even a little thing that's saying, let's say like their favorite color is blue and their friends is red, something like that, it just adds depth and relatability to the character. And then they can just say, I like red because, I don't know, it's for some reason, right? You have to have a reasoning, because we all have reasons for why we like certain colors, why we like certain things. And yeah, I also wanted to go back on to making sure that, everything's fitting with the predator and prey relationship with your with your reader. And basically, you can do a lot of M dashes, you can cut off and make sentence fragments with periods. You can do a lot of stuff in writing, because no one's going to get mad at you if it's a fragment, if the fragment shows off who the character is in the setting that they are in, and the circumstance, with having that predator and prey relationship, with keeping them on their toes and on their heels at the right time. And I've seen this from, I think one of my beta readers did tell me that sometimes you don't have a chance to let the reader breathe. So if you have an action scene, you have to make sure that there is at least some point of breathing, because in an action scene, there's a lot going on. It's really chaotic for most characters. unless it's a calm mind character. But anyway, there's just a lot going on regardless, and being able to convey that is something I haven't been figured out. Sometimes it just comes onto us naturally, and we are able to write that, but we don't know how to write it. And I think one last thing I can give you is write how you want the book to be written. I know some people use AI, which, it's not my place to tell you what not to do. That's just not my thing. But you do you. Just write the story that you want to tell, not the story that others want to tell. And that's why we're gonna get a more personal place. So if you want, you can cut off the video. But I've been I know I spoke about book talk before, booktube, whatever, with the romance aspect of it. And I hate to call some of y'all out, but what are y'all reading? I'm sorry, but personally, I don't think I would even, as soon as I see these people, recommending books or whatever, I'm like, you could have left that out and just told me about the plot, and I might have bought it. But now that you told me what all this other stuff is in it, then no, I'm not buying the book. But for most people, they like, what do people call it? Spice. They like all that. They like, and, they keep on asking themselves, why don't I have an extra possessive man? Because possessive men in the real world normally kidnap you. Anyway, yeah, I feel like that's just my thing. Why can't I find a man? But what you're looking for is serial killer type stuff, and expecting a man. And I will tell you this: if you are interested in those books, I'm sorry for laughing at you a bit, but just think about it like this. You're not going to feel the same way as you are to a book, because those are two fictional characters. And if someone says, I don't know, what do my friends say? I'll steal the stars for you, darling. You're going to be, squinting at them. Especially if it's not in the right context, which most romance books do not have the right context for some stuff. It just doesn't add up. But of course, what do I know? I haven't read that many, but just from snippets I've seen, it can be a little too much. But I hope this video was helpful. We're gonna have to end it. I don't think I really have to edit anything. I didn't screw up this time somehow. Yeah, most of the times I have to edit many things because I go off tangents. But we kind of got to the point, so give yourself a round of applause if you stayed till the end, because 85-90% of my viewers have already clicked off, and that's kind of weird, but we'll take it. But that's if you didn't know, that was me clapping. There's your round of applause. Give yourself a pat on the back. Keep reading. And I wanted to just let you know that the story that you are speaking for yourself can be told by many people, but it cannot be told in your own voice. And that voice is your prose. So don't doubt your prose. Don't doubt yourself, because doubt is how we lose. And I'm not trying to lose. We're trying to be winners here, aren't we? So whether you come from comment sections to emails to recommendation pages, this is Ryan, the author. Almost said my full name there. This is Ryan, the author. This is a Path and a Pen, and that's it. Y'all take care.